Hello again, everyone, and welcome to the Galen Snyder Show. I'm Vince Reed. Well, it's hard to believe, and it seems like every year when it comes that way, and I think to myself, where did those other 9 weeks go? But here it is, we're in the 10th week of the season, the final week of the regular season for most ball clubs, and we're into what should be just a gigantic ball game coming up with two arch rivals who played some tremendous games over the years, and that would of course mean Neshaminy and Pennsbury, and this year it'll be at Falcon Field for that contest. We're going to talk in depth about that game coming up and look over some of the players that are involved in that ball game and some of the stats that they bring to that contest as well. But first of all, we're going to talk about how things got to this point right now, where you've got Neshaminy and Pennsbury playing for the championship of the Suburban 1 League National Conference. As you know, Neshaminy comes in undefeated, and of course Pennsbury with that one loss at the beginning of the year against that good Easton ball club, in which they played them well for a half, and then of course didn't stay with them in the second half of play. But it was a good game, scored a lot of points, 38-28, gave you an idea that no matter what the opposition was, they were going to be able to put points on the board. And we'll talk about the beginning and coming into this point. And Galen, one of the things I wanted to ask you, you saw your team come around after that first ball game, and you looked at, I'm sure, that contest to see how things went. You knew the offense played well to get 28 points against a good Easton ball club. The defense, you knew coming in, was very young and had to learn. Where do you feel that, you actually got the feeling with this team overall, the defense was playing as well as the offense, and that things really came together? What game would you say, or where would you say in that season that you felt that, hey, we've really got it together now?
Well, it's funny, I don't even know if we still can get better. I really do believe that. And so I don't know if I would ever say that. I just think we're just trying to keep working hard and getting better. As long as the kids want to get better, which they do, we'll keep putting in the work, and that goes this week as well.
I had a couple of your guys on the show, the Coaches Roundtable show we do on Wednesday nights from 7 to 8 at Sandy's. And I remember, of course, talking to them about the fact that where they thought that maybe the defense, because you had a couple of guys from the defensive side of the ball there, and where do you feel the defense really came into its own? And you know what? The answer was the same thing that I thought. And I thought your defense came into its own at the beginning of the second quarter of the Frankfurt game. I think that's where you began to turn things around. Frankfurt kind of got outside on you all of the first quarter. You had to be worried about them ripping one off, but you were able to stop that, and you prevented them from throwing the ball like they wanted to throw it, if and when they wanted to throw it. And you also forced them to do things they didn't want to do when you pushed them inside, and the ends were really coming in and making sure everything was bottled up and for someone to come up and make a tackle. And when those guys mentioned the fact to me they thought that second quarter of Frankfurt, I thought the same thing.
Well, I would say that prior to the second quarter, we weren't playing very well at all.
Right, exactly.
So we started playing, I would say, better defense that first quarter in Frankfurt. I think the Abington game was probably our best, most complete game defensively. Getting a shutout against Abington, which is very rare, and we were able to do that. So I think that's probably our best singular defensive effort of the season. But I remember, I remember what you're referring to. I remember at that point in the Frankfurt game as well.
You take a look at this team and where they've come. Were you expecting when you started this season? Were you looking at the schedule and saying, well, it's going to be tough with these youngsters that we have on defense? Would you have thought right now that you'd be right now undefeated in the league and playing for the league championship at this date?
Well, I certainly wouldn't have put it down as a certainty. There's always the hope. We understood what we were facing this year as far as being a young squad. I know probably some people get tired of hearing it, but facts are facts. We're going to come into this game with 14 underclassmen starting for us, and that's not to take away from the seniors. Seniors have been awesome this year. Not only in their play but also in their leadership. So to think that we would be here to play a very veteran and very good Neshaminy team for the league title at the end, if you would have told me that, I definitely would have taken that deal in a second.
And you look at it right now, of course, the Chamonix, as we know, they had an awful lot coming back from a year ago. And you had a lot of youngsters on this ball club this year. And I think really it comes into this ball game to where, on paper at least, I look at this game, and I've mentioned it. I mentioned it to you before we went on the air. I mentioned it on the air, the Ben Salem ball game last weekend, is I really look at this game as I was looking it over for, the entire week this week, getting ready for this game. And this matchup reminds me of the 1970, 71, and 72 seasons when the Chamonix and Pennsbury played against one another. I consider that maybe the three best games that I've seen played between two outstanding teams that came on the field, and you could say either one was worthy and either one could have won the ball games. And I really look at this game, as I have watched those games and called those games from the early 70s, as being the same thing. I look back to that and I think to myself, it's taken this long, but I have the same feeling I do now as I had then back in the early 70s, and they were great teams.
Well, I appreciate it. I've certainly heard of those games and those teams, and that's when both schools were state powers, and
Right.
So they were great contests. I like to think back to the '80s. Some of the games that I was actually involved in, where I think when Jimmy Dundella was the head coach, and we played the Chamonix for the league title in '84, '85, and I was gone by then, but also, Troy Vincent's senior year,
Right.
'87. Chamonix had a great team with all those years with Dick Bettison, and he had a quarterback, Billy Bergantino, Tommy Knox, that crew. So those were really good games as well. I was kidding with you earlier that, the '70s, I was like 4 years old, so I don't really remember them, but I've seen pictures, of the game. I'm not sure which one that was. That was.
Well, you're looking at the 1970 Pennsbury was the winner. 71, the Chamonix was the winner. Close games. 72 Pennsbury at home here was a winner, and that's when you mentioned Dundalla, and that's the 72 game was where Pennsbury was winning 23-21, and Dundalla hit Schroba and knocked the ball loose when they were going for a possible winning score inside the 20-yard line, inside the 15 even, I think it was, and the game ended 23-21. And of course, when they did have a voting done about, maybe 10 years ago, whatever it was, as to the team of the century, and it came down to the Chamonix and Pennsbury, and the Chamonix's 1971 team, Pennsbury's 1972 team, and they finished 1 and 2, and the pick for the team of the century ended up being the 1971 Chamonix Ball Club. And really, I have no problem with those, because I think those 3 years were some of the best high school football I have ever seen. And I really do believe that this matches up to that ball game.
Well, that's quite a compliment, as I said, and it's a testament to the kids, on both teams who put in a great deal of work to get to this point. Hopefully the weather cooperates, and we have some crowds like they had in the '70s. Have a big crowd. We generally have a big crowd when we play the Chamonix, especially for a league title. We played them in 2008, 2009, and last year for league titles.
Yeah.
But I guess you're one of the people saying that this sort of has a little bit different feel this year.
Yeah, then just, it's always a good game. It's always a matchup because of the rivalry, and you never know how it's going to go, forget the records. But really, when you look at this year and back then, you could look at the records, because they were, as your two teams here, they were just outstanding. We're going to be back with more with Galen Snyder right after this.
At an orthopedic institute, world-class specialists, surgeons, and technology are a must. Personal care is too. The ARIA 3B Orthopedic Institute is redefining care in Center City, Bucks County, and South Jersey. With over a century of experience, the 3Bs, Doctors Booth, Bartolozzi, Balderston, and their partners personally guide you from treatment through recovery. For joint replacement, sports medicine, spine care, and more, call 1-888-ORTHO-3B or visit aria3bortho.org. At the ARIA 3B Orthopedic Institute, you come first.
And we're back once again with Galen Snyder, the Galen Snyder Show. We bring you weekly right here, and of course we'll be bringing you more of the Galen Snyder Show, because as it turns out, in the Chamonix and Pennsbury, no matter what happens in this ball game. It's going to be these two teams making the 16-team field and the District 1 Quad A playoffs coming up a week from tonight. Well, we take a look now. Let's take a look, Coach. And I brought along information here on both of these clubs. Basically, you know what yours is, and of course, we've been following your team. So I wanted to go in depth with the Chamonix Ball Club here to see exactly how they stack up. We'll try to go into with some of the ball players they have here. Tyler Wamball. I think Tyler Wamball was one of the two guys that they really needed before the season started. They weren't sure who the quarterback was going to be. They had a lot of people coming back. They also were really unsettled until the season really was ready to get started as to who the running back was going to be, but they always come up with that one good running back. But Tyler Wamball has done a nice job. 43 for 75 passing, 609 yards, 8 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. His longest throw was 49 yards so far this year for a completion. When you look at the stats on him, and when you look at somebody who comes in here and rather untested compared to the rest of the team, having been around and been a senior late in ball club, your thoughts about somebody like Tyler Wamball who has to put this thing together?
Well, he seems like the typical Neshaminy quarterback that they always bring out there. A kid who knows the offense, handles the ball well. When he has an opportunity, and he's called upon to make a big play, he does it. Otherwise, he's managing the game for them. So he's pretty fairly consistent with what they've brought to the table in the past.
And like I mentioned, they really weren't sure as to who they were going to have as that running back. The guy can do it, but from day one, DeAndre Pollard has been the guy who's been able to do it for him. He's got 1,808 yards. He's got 24 TDs. His long run was 80. And of course, he has 144 points racked up with all those touchdowns. He's averaging slightly over 200 yards per game for him. And of course, he's 5'7", 167 and a junior. He's like the guys you have that will be coming back, another good running back. I think, he, along with Chuck Snorway, who leads your ball club, and the array of backs that you got, are two of the best backs that we have in Bucks County this year. But I look at him and I think to myself, and I was telling you even before we went on the air, but I think the key here to me for your ball club is if you can hold him to 100 yards or less, rather than giving him his 200, then they have to find out something else to do besides.
Well, that's quite a statement. Hold him to 100
Yeah.
yards. But it gives you an idea what kind of season he's had. He's very fast, explosive back, has very good vision. He's definitely someone who's had a phenomenal year.
Yeah, and not only, he of course is the key running back, but you got Denny Lord and Blake Sullivan, who will also be in the fullback positions. They're guys who basically are in there for the most part to block, but of course they can also get you that hard yard or two when you need it in any big situation in the ball game. But they've done a nice job being able to do the job for him as a blocking back for the most part from that fullback position.
Yeah, they're two big fullbacks. The Sullivan kid is a big physical kid, tough kid. Does a lot of blocking. He can run hard inside. And Lord, he's a two-way starter for him. He's the guy as far as he's got some speed. He'll break off some long runs. He's also physical blocking. So he's definitely the guy. You have to, one of those guys you got to stop.
We'll take a look a little bit too as we go along here. Cole Creighton, who's of course has been there for a long time with them, and he's a senior this year. And you got the likes too of Ahmed Pack, and Pack is an all-purpose back. He's got 497 all-purpose yards this year, and as it turns out, he's received 25 receptions for 400 yards, and he also is averaging 16 per catch and has 4 touchdowns. So he's a tough one to worry about a little bit there if they have to throw the ball around.
Yeah, Creighton's a really good football player on both sides of the ball. He's a kid who's started for him both offensively and defensively in the past, and they have weapons beyond him as well. So they're definitely a formidable team.
You know, one of the things that you look at too, of course, we always talk about the guys who have the ball, get the stats, but you look what they've used for the most part this year. They've had Hunter Kelly, Matt Wynn, John Koch at center, Dan Johnson at one guard, and Mike Palmer at a tackle position. There you're looking again at four of them being seniors, and certainly, like we said, the fact that you had some seniors in offense this year helped you a lot too to get that offense rolling.
Yeah, they have a lot of seniors on both sides of the ball, but they got an excellent offensive line. They always do, and this year they have one of their better offensive lines that they've had. And when I say offensive line, and also the tight end is heavily involved.
Right.
Luke Carazola, who's probably, we don't do it anymore for the league. They used to pick a player of the year for the league.
Yeah.
And Carazola is probably the best individual player in the league. So he's quite a handful on both sides of the ball.
And I think I was talking to some people too, and the fact that, as you mentioned, Luke Carazola, and they were stating to me, and rightly so, that they think one of the biggest things in trying to stop your offense is the job that Carazola can do on you, and exactly how you're going to be having a blocking scheme to take care of him, because some people are thinking that he's the one that could mess up your offense more than anybody.
Well, you can always run to the other side. I'm actually a little bit more concerned. He did a great job against us defensively last year, but I'm actually even more concerned on the offensive side. I think of his blocking. He sets the edge for Pollard, all those yards. He does a great job establishing a double team, taking care of the defensive end, turning them over to the offensive tackle, and then getting up to the backers. And he was driving Abington's linebackers, 10, 15 yards down the field. They never got a handle on Pollard. So he is as valuable as he is on defense. I think he's even more valuable on the offensive side to what they're going to do.
And speaking of defense, we're going to look at that next for the Neshaminy defense coming up right after this.
The ARIA 3B Orthopedic Institute is redefining care in Center City and South Jersey. And our 50,000 square foot location on ARIA Health's Bucks campus in Langhorne features private rooms, free parking, and nearby hotels. With over a century of experience, the world-class 3Bs, Doctors Booth, Bartolozzi, Balderston, and their partners personally guide you from treatment through recovery. For all your orthopedic needs, call 1-888-ORTHO-3B or visit aria3bortho.org. At the ARIA 3B Orthopedic Institute, you come first.
And we're back once again. We talked about the Neshaminy offense. We're going to have the coach look into the Neshaminy defense a little bit to give you an idea as what some of these guys have done so far this year. And when we do that, I want to let you know that the two tackles and the two ends on defense, as well as the four linebackers, are all seniors on this ball club. So they're a veteran ball club there. They're good. They're not just seniors, but they are very good indeed. As we said, as far as the defensive ends go, you mentioned Luke Carazola got himself 32 tackles this year, 20 solos, 7 sacks, 6 hurries. On the other side, Dorian Arthur, who's another big kid at 6'2", 208. He has 5 sacks and 3 hurries. And of course, you've got the tackles. One tackle, 6'4", 255, is Mike Palmer. And Palmer, of course, a big guy. The other guy, who really is the smallest of all of them, 5'6", 180, and that's Alex Nicholas. 29 tackles, 21 solos, 3.5 sacks, and 2 hurries. He's actually the speed guy when it comes down to it of this 4 that are in there. He's the guy that really has the biggest quickness.
Yeah, their defensive line, if you look at it, they got the big, strong defensive end, athletic as well with Carazola. You have a speed guy on the other side with Arthur, who's actually pretty big himself.
He is.
And you got the big 3 technique, which is Palmer. He's what you want out of a 3 technique, a big guy who can play off the double teams or whatnot. And then you have Nicholas, who's the smaller guy, but he's very strong, very quick, and he's the one who they use to get in the backfield, play him at the shade nose position, and it's his responsibility to basically wreak havoc in that.
Yeah, I know. In fact, one week at the show, we had Nicholas and Arthur were there together. Nice guys, really, really very nice gentlemen. Came up to me afterwards. We talked a little bit, and I was asking Nicholas about his size, compared to the other guys in the line. He said, I count on the fact that I've got the quickness. I'm the guy that maybe can break through there first compared to the rest of them, because I can get off the ball quicker and get in that backfield.
Yeah, he was a handful for us last year. He did a great job against us, as Carazola did. So they're definitely formidable up front.
You know, you look at their linebackers. Trocom Boozmail, who's certainly been a mainstay for the club. He's one of the captains. He has 21 tackles, 16 solos, also a couple of sacks and a hurry as well. And then you got Denny Lord next to him. And Lord has 46 tackles, 33 solos there. Matt Bianchini will be after that with 39 tackles, 29 solos. And then you got Cole Creighton with 18 tackles, 14 solos. And as a linebacker there, they got 124 tackles as the linebackers in there. And you see by their stats, they all get a hand in there.
Actually, what you see too, Trocon and Cole Creighton, those two were actually corners last year. And they moved them up to outside linebackers. And Denny Lord was an outside linebacker. Now he's inside.
Yeah.
So I think what you see with them is, in the past when we faced them, they would, they'd throw out 4 D linemen, 4 linebackers, big, stout guys, and we've had some trouble with them. And I think if you look at this defense, it's not just built to play Pennsbury. I think it's built to, play some spread teams that they might face in the playoffs, like Coachville's and whatnot. So I think right here you've seen a little bit of a changeover, maybe a little bit more of an emphasis on speed than just brute strength. And, and it's worked out.
Yeah, and when you look at it, Coach, you look at the corners and the secondary there, you've got 1 senior, a sophomore, and 2 juniors when it comes down to the secondary for them. And the senior is Devin Brown. The others, of course, have an opportunity to come back. They'll be the 3 coming back from this group.
Right, yeah. I mean, Devin's a full-time guy, and, they run in a couple guys in past situations. But you're really looking at 9 seniors on defense and 8 seniors on offense. So it's a veteran squad and a very good one as well.
And of course, we have mentioned every week about your guys, and we know exactly what they do and the ball club you have. Your line has looked great. Your backs, of course, you've got Snorway, you've got Smith, you've got Thompson, and Snorway, of course, has got himself another huge game where he only carried 3 times against Ben Salem, scored on 3 of them, and a couple of them really long runs. But that trio has done the job for you, in a way that Snorway leads them in yardage, but they all have a lot of yards. They all have the other 2 have at least 600 yards apiece, and Snorway leads the pack with them. But when you look at it, what they have to do, Neshaminy, they got to stop 3, not 1.
They do, and we're averaging almost 40 points a game for the season. Our guys haven't had much trouble running on anybody, quite frankly. All season. Even in the Easton game, we put up 28. We usually don't do that well against them. So, but this is a little bit different. This is going to be a different challenge for our guys. This is like I said, a veteran defense, a very good one. A quick one, physical one. This will be our biggest challenge of the year from our offensive perspective.
Yeah, and you look at your offense too, and take a look at your defense, and your defense, of course, has the job of stopping DeAndre Pollard, Juan Ball, and the rest of them as well. And your defense has been tested a lot this year. They've come through, and they've learned a lot. I think they are now seasoned compared to when they started. But this will probably be a really huge test for them as far as that goes defensively.
Yeah, we've been facing a lot of some talented teams, but they're more spread teams, a little bit more finesse oriented. This is a team. We haven't seen the likes of this team since the Easton game. That's going to line up and really try to be physical with you and really try to set a tone and knock you off the football.
All right, we're looking forward to this one. As I said, my feeling is this is one of the great games setting up between these 2. And if it doesn't wind up that way, I will be kind of surprised that one really beats out the other in a big way. But I look back and see where these 2 are similar to some of the outstanding teams that have played one another in this series between the arch rivals in Pennsbury and Neshaminy, and we're looking forward to bringing you that in just a couple of minutes from now. Galen, thank you very much. Good luck in this ball game, and we're looking for one really great contest.
Thanks, Vince.
All right, we're set now. We're getting ready for the biggest game of the year so far. The arch rivals for the championship of the Suburban 1 National Conference will be meeting at Falcon Field, as tonight's game will feature the Pennsbury Falcons entertaining the Redskins of Neshaminy. So for Galen Snyder, I'm Vince Reed, and along with my engineer Mike Samsel, it's game time.